Welcome to Making It with Terry Woolman, the show that explores the secrets, successes, and strategies for making it in the music biz. And now, here's your host, Terry Woolman.
I'm Terry Woolman, your host, and my guest today is Grammy-nominated artist Tierney Sutton. I appreciate you joining us. Hi, Tierney. It's great to see you.
Great to see you.
I appreciate you joining us every week, and I appreciate you joining us this week, Tierney. And I'd like to share my intention that inspires this podcast. Time passes quickly, and I've learned that we should do what's in our hearts and do it well without apologies or excuses. I encourage you to create your life and art in your own unique way and express your artistry with joy and abandon. Be willing to work uncompromisingly for what you believe in. Success will have a better chance of finding you when you live your life with integrity, focus, and passion. Be selfish with your discipline and selfless in your performance. And don't forget to have fun along the way. If you're joining us in our live audience today, we'll be inviting questions and comments during the second half of our show, so make it count. Simply request an invite to speak, and we'll bring you on stage to join the conversation. Let me tell you about our guest. 9-time Grammy-nominated jazz vocalist Tierney Sutton has received a Best Jazz Vocal Album Grammy nod for every project she has released in the last decade. Known for her impeccable voice and imaginative treatments of the Great American Songbook, Sutton is heralded for her abilities as both a jazz storyteller and her ability to use her voice as an instrument. Her 14 recordings as a leader have addressed themes such as materialism and the battle between our higher and lower natures, the pursuit of happiness, as well as paying tribute to the music of Bill Evans, Frank Sinatra, and pop icon Sting. Her Joni Mitchell tribute, After Blue, which I was listening to again this morning and totally enjoying, features keyboardist Larry Goldings, drummer Peter Erskine, jazz vocal legend Al Jarreau, and flautist Hubert Laws. Hubert. Thank you. That's the first time I've ever said his name wrong in my life.
You know, people do that all the time, even people that know his work really well, so don't worry about it.
Sutton's approach to collaboration is based on the Baha'i principle of consultation. In her own words, there is very much a sense that what we do is essentially a spiritual thing, and everyone's voice needs to be heard. Tierney Sutton, welcome to Making It.
I loved your intention at the beginning, and it made me think of the prayer that I say before I go on stage. And,
would you share that?
Yeah, and because it's not very long. It says, "O God, make of me a hollow reed from which the pith of self hath been blown, so that I may be a clear channel through which thy love may flow to others." And then what I usually add after that is "play ball," which is from a very dear friend of mine who is a kind of, my joke with my friend Eric is that he was such a stereotypical New York Jew, they asked him to leave Judaism. Anyway, he became a Baha'i, I think he was in his 20s or 30s or something. And he was very cynical, and he never had experienced any reverence in his life. And so the first time he was with a group of Baha'is and someone was saying prayers, the quiet, the kind of quiet meditational vibe that happened in prayer, he always wanted to say "play ball" after it, because it was like the singing of the national anthem at a baseball game. And then when it's done, people say "play ball." And I decided, there's something kind of cool about that, because that's what it is. It's, make of me a hollow reed, get your spiritual, stuff in order, and then play ball. So.
Well, it's a great intention and prayer to set each show off with. Thanks for sharing that. It's beautiful. It makes me, it brings more clarity to why I feel this certain way that I'm going to tell you right now when I listen to you sing. And it's quite simply, when I hear you sing, it feels like the song is performing you.
Wow, that's really, really lovely. And it's something that I've said when I work with great musicians. I often feel like I'm being played, Like I'm one of the instruments in the band, and the band as a whole is playing me. So that's interesting that you would say that. And of course, on the new record, when I'm doing unison with Hubert Laws, I'm really just trying to match his incredible sound and trying to be one with that as much as possible, because he's, this great master. So, that's really interesting that you would say that. That's actually quite lovely.
It just came to me the other day, because I've just been listening. I mean, I've been listening to you for a long time, but re-listening and revisiting your music as I've been preparing for our conversation, and I wanted to share that with you. So I'm glad that it resonates. And I also want to. Kind. You're so very welcome. I wanted to acknowledge your band, because your band is a band in every sense of the word. As far as being a collaborative group where you are, I will let you give the details on that. But let me just give a shout out to Christian Jacob on piano, Trey Henry and Kevin Axt on bass, Ray Brinker on drums, the core of this beautiful band that you have had together for quite a long time.
Yeah, the band has been together for 30 years. We have been incorporated for 17 years,
which is really unique.
It's really unique.
Yeah.
And so for the past 17 years, all the Tierney Sutton band records. Well, this is a very interesting story, because when I first started, and it was me that got the record deal, and I got my first record deal with Telarc. Really, well, there was an independent. There was a European label that put out my first album, introducing Tierney Sutton, which had the Tierney Sutton band, but about 5 tracks on it were duets with the wonderful pianist Mike Lang, who just passed.
Yeah.
And because I wanted to have some duo ballads, and Christian hadn't really done that yet much. And so we hadn't really developed that in
right.
terms of our bag of tricks. And as time went, so then shortly after that based on that record, I got signed to Telarc, and I had a 5-album deal, which is kind of unheard of. It was weird. I've often thought that there should be an article about me called "The Last Jazz Singer." They gave me advances. They gave me tour support.
Wow.
They let me try to build a career. And when I signed with them,
that's fantastic.
I had kind of just had my son. My son was two or three, and I said to them, "Hey, I'm happy to record for you, but you have to know that I'm not going to go on the road for 300 days a year, because I have a 2-year-old."
Right.
And they said, "You just tour the record for 2 weeks a year. We're good. We'll put out your record if you don't tour at all."
That is so magnificent and unbelievable.
Yeah, it is magnificent and unbelievable. So yay to Elaine Martone and Bob Woods and all the people at Telarc. So they basically said, okay, Ray Brown and Oscar Peterson said you're good, and said you should record with your band. And so rather than putting out my first record with, Kenny Barron and Ray Brown, which would have been fine with me, honestly, at that point.
Well, absolutely.
Oscar Peterson said to the Muckamucks at Telarc, "You know what? Her band is really great. You should let her record with her band." So they said, "Record with your band," but they were not willing to to change the name from Tierney Sutton to Tierney Sutton Band. Or maybe at the first record I didn't ask, but by the second record we did was a Bill Evans tribute. And in preparing for that record, our collaborative arranging really, really took focus. I mean, we met for hours, I remember, at my house, and we'd pick songs and we would, caress these arrangements together as a band. And so when that record came out, I think I started to try to lobby to say, let's call it the Tierney Sutton Band. And because of this, it's really strange because I think like my I haven't checked this, but I think my numbers of streams on Spotify and all that stuff are totally messed up because there's Tierney Sutton records, there's Tierney Sutton Band records, there's the Tierney Sutton Band. So like it's very weird. So I think I have more streams than it looks like I have because there are all these different places. So finally I remember we recorded the first live record in 2005. And they wouldn't let me change the name. So I called the record I'm With the Band.
Oh, right. Yeah,
I titled the record I'm With the Band. And I thought, well, if they won't let me, they just said marketing wise, it's going to be bad. And no. So I just called the record I'm With the Band. And then that was my first Grammy nomination was for that record.
Beautiful.
And then after that, the next record, I said, look, I want to title the records after this, the Tierney Sutton Band. And so we did. And then that's the point at which we incorporated and we became real partners. And so every gig that we've done and all the rest of it. Now, things change and we've kind of all moved in a lot of different directions. I'm sure we'll come together and do more stuff as Tierney Sutton Band. But we might, I think we might be, and our corporation is called Hollow Reed Incorporated, which is related to that prayer that I said. But I think we're going to be changing things just because I've been doing so many solo projects and everybody's got so many different things going on.
Sure.
That 17 years of being incorporated and 30 years of being the exact same people, it might be moving a little bit in the next little bit, but it's all good.
It sounds like it because change, when the intention is from the heart, is a good thing. It's always a good thing. And the musicians in your band who I know quite well, most of them, they're all really busy as well. The band is not the only thing that they do as
at all.
With you.
Right.
In hearing you speak about the evolution of the name of the band is interesting too, because recently I had Gabe Dixon on our show as a guest, and he came out of the gate as the Gabe Dixon Band and then reversed the order, to becoming a solo artist, because they were band too. They all came out of University of Miami together, and Gabe talked about that as well. And even though he was always really, in every way, the voice of the band, stylistically, as well as literally.
Yeah.
So, speaking of these marvelous musicians, I reached out to them, and a couple of them had a moment to actually write something for me to share with you and with your audience as well. And I've got 3 of them. And the first is from Trey Henry. In all the years I've been working with musicians, Tierney might be the most comfortable with being uncomfortable. When she is in a musically precarious situation, she manages to harness the resulting anxiety and create a series of instantaneous and completely authentic musical moments. Her fear is fuel approach makes the musicians around her expert improvisers.
Ooh.
That's from Trey.
That's nice.
Kevin Axt wrote, "It's awfully hard to encapsulate what it's been like to work with Tierney with just 2 or 3 sentences, but I can certainly say that she changed me as a musician. She taught me to be fearless, egoless, and she, as well as all the fellow members of our band, challenged me to raise my game musically in all regards. Without a doubt, she is and always will be one of the biggest musical influences in my life."
Oh, wow. That makes me cry coming from Christian because he's such a genius. And I think all the guys have an amazing reputation, but in Christian's case, having Keith Jarrett look me in the eye and say, "You have an amazing band, you have an amazing pianist," that's something. So that really makes me kind of tear up.
And to clarify, that last quote was actually from Kevin. But here's what Christian said, and it's very similar. So I think, your reaction will be the same. A real jazz musician reacts to what he hears and will play in a fashion that will make the whole sound good. Singers generally don't do that. They are on top, have their ways, and let the musicians adapt. Besides her obvious talent delivering lyrics, Tierney is a rare singer who actually cares about the whole and will change her own approach when necessary. She knows the real pleasure of music is in the whole. She's a great gal, too. That's from Christian.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So your fellow artist, and I know that the others, Ray Brinker would have said the same. You know, they love you. You know, and they love the experience, and you know, a lot of it is because the music's so great, but it's the way that you approach it. So I want to talk about you growing up a little bit, and then we'll circle. And we won't do a lot of that because people can hear that on most interviews of yours. But I just want to touch on a few things, and then I want to talk about your Baha'i faith and really what drives the intention and the process, the creative process of the band. So you were born in Nebraska, grew up in Milwaukee, played piano and sang while you were growing up. You didn't really come into jazz until your college years. I came in a little late as well. Into jazz, but we both ended up going to Berkeley. But you, there's a jazz pianist vocalist, Mary J., who, while you were waitressing, you tell the story. This is somebody that deeply influenced you.
Yeah, this is really interesting. I was going to college. I had done my first year at BU. I was studying Russian language and literature. Mm-hmm. I had become a Baha'i, and my intention was to do something to promote the oneness of mankind and the unity of the world. And in 1981-82, that was about Russia and the United States. It was, Reagan, the evil empire years, all of that stuff, which I guess we've sort of come full circle.
Yeah, we're back.
We're back, everybody. So, sometimes when I hear stuff on the radio in Russian, I understand a little tiny bit of it. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so I was a Russian language and literature major, but I sang, and so I had a summer gig at the Heidel House, which was a resort in Green Lake, Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. And it was a very popular resort, a very popular lake getaway for people from Chicago, rich people from Chicago. Mm-hmm. We'd have cottages and boats and everything on Green Lake. And my grandparents had a little house there, and so we used to go visit them. Well, I got a summer job in this resort, and I was a Heidel honey. And when I say this, whatever you're picturing in your mind, that's exactly it. We wore costumes that looked like the St. Pauli beer girl.
Yeah, that's what I'm picturing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you're exactly right. It was Green Lake, Wisconsin. The big controversy my year was, for the first time, there was a Heidel honey who was not blonde.
Oh.
Who was half Italian and half Greek. That was big news.
That's shaking it up.
That's shaking it up. Yeah. So it was kind of scary. It was a kind of scary kind of situation. But, I was 19. It was a very good job. They gave us this little apartment. I remember Gina Cephas, the Italian Greek girl, who was very funny, very good singer too. She would say, "I feel like Doris Day." She'd say, I walk down the street and someone says, "Oh, you're one of the honeys," And so we were kind of these celebrities in the mm-hmm. town, and we traveled as a pack. We had our own little apartment. We, dated the Illinoisian boys, and people would want to take the honeys out on their boat, mm-hmm. and now here I'm this 19-year-old new Baha'i, and we don't drink. So I'm working in this bar. I'm serving alcohol to drunk Illinoisians and doing group songs together. We had 3 shows. We had a pop show, a Broadway show, and an Americana show. And I don't remember anything
would that
from
be
the
like
pop show. Because
the Americana, would that be like New Christy Minstrels, Pete Seeger kind of stuff, or?
No.
Okay.
Oh, that's way too deep in hip for this. No, the Americana show, I remember the group song, one of the group songs we sang was Battle Hymn of the Republic.
Oh,
God
wow.
help us. Mine eyes have seen the glory. And then we sang songs that had the names of states or cities in them. So there was Moonlight in Vermont, there was Chicago, there was all these kinds of things. And so, and then the Broadway show had, I remember the group song was One Singular Sensation. And then we each had 2 solos. And so we'd serve drinks. We'd go up together and do the group songs. And then we'd serve drinks while each one of us would go up and do 1 or 2 solos, you know.
Sure.
And we did this god-awful thing with an organ player named Mike Breister. I wish I could hear a recording of what those arrangements were like.
That'd be great. Yeah.
I mean, I just really would like to know. And on the weekends, we added Laverne Breister Brower, his mother, on accordion, and a drummer from Oshkosh, whose name I do not remember.
Mm-hmm.
And I do remember that Mike Breister used to have an entire bottle of Corbel brandy. Is that brandy? What is Corbel?
Or champagne?
I don't know what Corbel is. Whatever it is.
I think it's a champagne.
Okay, and he would drink that all night.
Ugh.
I mean, this was a very Wisconsin kind of situation.
Sure, yeah.
So that was the musical situation I was in. Now, across the street, there was a jazz trio. And this singer-pianist named Mary J. was singing there. And her daughter and son-in-law were the other members of the band. And I can't remember who played bass and who played drums. But one of them played drums and one of them played bass. And they were just this swinging little jazz trio. And me, dopey little white girl who grew up in Wisconsin and just listened to whatever was on white girl radio in 1975 and 1980, had never heard a really good jazz singer in person, a swinging little jazz trio that had good taste.
Right.
And as I sat and listened to them, I thought, I had taken note that in our shows, there would be certain songs that even we couldn't destroy. Like, I knew there was something really cheesy about what we were doing, but I couldn't put my finger on what it was. And part of it was trying to be carbon copies of something that was on the radio and missing the mark by so much. But it also was the architecture of the songs and the fact that your ear wanted to hear what was on the radio rather than just enjoying the architecture of the songs. But certain songs could stand up even to our abuse.
Right, to the torture that you put the songs through.
Exactly. And I would notice those songs. So when somebody would sing Moonlight from Vermont, I'd go, oh. Somebody would sing Funny Valentine. I'd go, oh. Right. George on My Mind. Oh. So there were, and so when I went across the street, I said, how come everything these guys are doing has that same doesn't make my skin crawl feeling? And I realized, oh, this is jazz. It's because they're doing it their own way. The architecture of the songs themselves are really good. There's a sort of sincerity and individuality in what's going on, but there's something selfless about it. And it's funny because I wondered, so I knew there was this thing called jazz. And then I went to Wesleyan. I transferred from BU to Wesleyan, and there were a lot of really great jazz musicians there. And I was able to find people to sort of be mentors and teach me a bunch of songs and really bring me into the world of jazz a little bit more and tell me what the heck was going on.
And you were exposed to Betty Carter. You saw a live performance of her, and she changed my life too. I mean, just
unbelievable.
Yeah, just watching her sing.
Well, and for me,
showed
it was
me what
watching
was
her
possible.
sing. Yeah, watching her sing, and
listening.
But also watching the band and realizing how amazing the band was, and how it was the first time that I realized, oh, instrumental music is great. And I would get really, really excited about watching instrumentals. And I'm very good pals with with Benny Green on Facebook, but otherwise too. And, I always remember so fondly because he was in that band. And I remember watching him and Louis Nash and just going, she could leave and I'd still be riveted. But I watched her live a lot. I used to always say that she was the Bruce Springsteen of jazz. You had to see her live.
Yeah.
Because her live thing was a thing.
It was raw and fearless.
That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. This is great. So I want to talk, let's get into your band and then we will then circle back. I want to certainly talk about our dear friend Alan Bergman, Alan and Marilyn, of course, who you were so close with, and we both had the supreme pleasure of collaborating with and creating with. Also Kurt Elling, who was just on our show a couple of weeks ago, and
great.
There's something beautiful that you just did with him and Chris Walden. And but let's talk about your faith and your spirituality, how that basically is part of the fuel that the musicians, are mentioning that propel you.
Yeah, no, for me, it's really the bottom line of most of the choices I've made and most of the decisions I've made has been based on Baha'i principles. The issue of trying to find harmony and oneness and thinking about music in that regard. But then there's also, I think, I don't divorce it from issues of justice. My dad, who's passed away, used to have a saying. He'd say, people will give you anything except some of their money. And so when I decided that it was really, I wanted the band to be my partners for real, it was really a matter of, okay, how can this be truly just? It's really about justice. And Baha'i-wise, it's the oneness issue, but then it's also justice. And I think of justice as love as an action. There's love. You can say you love something, but if you're not creating justice, then you don't really love it. It's like, if you love something, do you really want to sacrifice for it? Or do you want to just keep things as they are? And I don't think that's really love. And so I had a really good example in my dad. He was a civil rights lawyer, and his secretary had a percentage of his law firm. And this was not the way things were done in Wisconsin. And he never told her how to dress or any of that crap. And it actually got him booted out of a law firm that he was in for a while, because all the other secretaries would get so mad because his secretary could come in anytime she wanted. She just needed to get the work done, and she could dress any way she wanted. And he paid her better than they were getting paid. And they were like, wait a minute, like this can be a thing?
Right.
And so I had really good examples. And so when I started to study the Baha'i teachings, it was always about, all right, what does this actually practically mean? What does this mean practically in terms of what my business is, how I treat the people I work with, the music I choose, the approach I choose? What does this really mean? And it's nice because the principles are really practical. And I think consultation is something that's very important for Baha'is. And for us, it's like, we're still learning this. I mean, this is all in progress. And Baha'is don't have any clergy in our faith. So we're all sort of like in this experimental phase of trying to figure out how to do things.
I kind of like that.
It's hard. And I always joke with my friends that are newly parts of the Baha'i community. I'm like, if you don't like organized religion, don't worry. This isn't so organized. I mean, it is actually, but but it is so based on consultation and people coming together. Like, nobody's going to sit down and say, okay, you have to do it this way, and you're going to do it this way, and you're going to do it this way. So the principles of consultation that I think are really quite amazing are, one, every person needs to have a voice. So if you and I are trying to solve a problem, okay, and say you and I are trying to solve a problem, and Trey Henry also is involved in this, we have to make sure that your opinion is heard, my opinion is heard, and Trey's opinion is heard. Somebody can't say, "Oh, I just don't care." I mean, they can say, "I think I'm okay with what's going on," but for these important questions, and creating music with people is an important thing. I'm sure you'll agree, especially people that are great artists. So if you're in a band, think of the implications of saying, I really want to know what Trey thinks about how the bridge of this is. Is this okay, or is this kind of tweaky? Mm-hmm. And you get used to hearing and making sure those opinions are stated. So that's one thing. 2, be detached. So if I have an idea, you have to express yourself. So the first thing is, make sure everybody feels empowered to express themselves. However, when you express yourself, know that it might not work out.
Yeah.
You might have a really good idea, but when it's run through the machinery of the other musicians,
the collective filter.
Exactly, the collective filter, it may not work. And I learned that so many times with the band, which was great. It was just a great experience because I would spend, their musicianship is beyond mine. I mean, they're
brilliant. They're really magnificent.
They can read incredibly well, sight read all of them. They can just pull stuff out of their butts. I can't do that. So I would write charts with my little slow, this is before music software. So I would sit there and I'd make these charts and I said, I actually wanted a half step up, and I'd do it again.
Right.
I would spend, like sometimes 10 hours creating this little chart and coming to a band rehearsal with this little arrangement idea that I had spent so much time on. And within 5 minutes of the guys playing it, I would know, okay, this isn't going to work. Mm-hmm. And having that experience of knowing that making the effort is never wasted, but no matter how much effort you make, but no matter how much effort you make, you can't be attached. And I saw time and again that some idea I was really attached to, once it was in the band process, when it went in a different direction, I'd be like, wow, that really is better.
Yeah.
And having that experience, I mean, imagine the implications of those skills in the public square. Imagine people coming into consultative, problem-solving arenas and having opinions, but knowing their opinions are actually supposed to change.
Right.
They're actually, like how it is supposed to work is you are supposed to know how to be comfortable changing your mind. And I think
also
we live in a world. Yeah,
but also to stay aware that it doesn't mean that the idea was a bad idea. It could be
not
a fantastic, unbelievably brilliant idea. It just might not be the best idea.
Well, but the other thing is that it's not about the best idea.
Okay.
And I think that's also kind of not the way to look at it. It's like,
okay.
To understand, because I'll give you some examples. All right. So in the band process, what often has happened is, all right, everyone expresses themselves. You treat the others with respect, and you know if they have strong opinions about something that you want to respect those. Mm-hmm. And so there have been many times through the years where one of the band members had a really strong opinion about something. And over time, they weren't able to completely release that idea. And the reason, but the rule is, okay, so think about this. This is kind of getting in the weeds, but I think you'll understand.
Good, let's.
Our rule for creating an arrangement that we're going to do for a long period of time is that, okay, we come together, we try it out, and then we take it on the road and we do it live, and then we consult about it afterwards. Mm-hmm. And very frequently, we all have the same reaction, like, oh, the last A section, that 7/4 part, that just doesn't work. So how can we make that cleaner? What's going to feel better? We often feel the same once we've taken it out. But the idea is, when you take it out everybody puts their whole heart into it. Everybody tries to make it really good as we've decided to do it. Nobody tries to undermine it because it wasn't their idea. Like, I don't think this is going to work, so I'm going to like be kind of poisonous about it. So to detach the idea, and in Baha'i consultation, this is really specific. If we're consulting, we don't refer to things as Terry's idea and Tierney's idea. We just refer to them as the idea. We're just, the idea that maybe we should do an educational thing at the Monterey Jazz Festival is a good idea, except, let's look at the fact that we are doing a lot of things at a school near Monterey 2 months before, and will that be bad or will that be good? So that whole thing of not having your personality attached to the idea and not having your identity attached to the idea. And that's what I mean about releasing the idea of the best idea. And so if you start feeling like, oh wow, the magic happens when something happens that I didn't expect. And most of the best stuff that's happened with the band, we often would be hard pressed to remember exactly how those ideas came about.
That makes sense.
And sometimes we know the root of it, like, one of us gave this little jumping off point, but how it all totally came together was maybe happened on the bandstand and we all decided at the same time and just did something. So, but again, it's a skill set that relates to learning that it's okay to change your mind, and that it's a great feeling to not be attached to something so that you're disappointed when it doesn't go your way, and realizing that it didn't go my way. It went my way better because this was the better thing to do.
This sounds like it's also a magnificent way to bring up your son.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That must be very empowering and liberating.
Yeah. It's tough. I mean, I think that we don't live in a world where people have these ways of consultation, but that idea that everybody needs to be heard, and it's not like, well, it's my way or the highway, and it's like I'm the mother kind of thing. That's not going to go very far.
Well, it's the same, as you very well know, in songwriting. You walk in the room and it, you just get it. What I've learned from collaborating with seasoned songwriters over the years is you walk in and nobody pays attention or keeps track of who thought of what or why or anything. We're all equal partners in this creation, whatever it is, and whoever's moving around to pianos and guitars and writing lyrics, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you are all there, open and willing and curious and
I think so.
Following the trail, looking for the magic.
Right. Yeah. And I think even when you work alone, there is a mystery about where things come from, and it might be from a conversation you had with somebody else. We're all subtly stealing from each other in ways we don't even understand. And so the idea of something being just yours, I don't think any good writer that I've ever heard really feels that way. That it's just, their thing.
Yeah. Well, a great example are our friend Alan Bergman and Marilyn. It was episode 2, about 6 years ago of this podcast.
Wow.
Where I went to the house, to Alan and Marilyn's home, and we were talking. I don't remember if this was during the show or the after conversation, which was also really incredible. But Alan, I think it was Alan who said, I'd have to go back and listen, but the two of them were very in sync, of course, in how they approached it. But they said to me, when they write lyrics with these magnificent composers, that they write with, they said at the end of the day that the lyrics are just sitting on the tip of each note to pluck.
I love that.
Yeah, it was beautiful because and I'm wondering if this is part of the Baha'i faith also. I would imagine you feel this as an artist, but I'm curious about faith-wise if it's the same. That we are vessels. That they're truly not our ideas anyway. The true art of being an artist is to open yourself up. You work on your craft. You practice your
Right.
everything so
Right.
that you can be open for it to receive it, to be a
Right.
vessel.
Yeah. Well, that's, the prayer that I said, make of me a hollow reed,
Right.
make me from which the pith of self hath been blown, through which thy love may flow to others. So, that idea that really it's when, and I'm sure you felt it on stage, the best moments are those moments where you've worked enough so that you know the music. You don't have to think about remembering the lyrics. You don't have to think about those other things. But you're also challenged enough to be in the flow of something, and you're able to just open yourself up to that thing, and you don't remember. You like lose yourself. Everybody in the band has talked about that. Having a transcendent experience, and it really has been a great gift that the band has given me, is just having so many experiences of feeling something transcendent on stage, just feeling away from myself.
Right.
And it's something that has been one of the great gifts of being close to Alan and Marilyn, because what happened with Alan and Marilyn was that about 15 years ago, I got a call from them. And as you probably know, in the old days, well, until Marilyn passed, when they would call you, They'd be on extensions, right. And the two of them, and they'd say, hey, whatever. And so anyway, we became very close. And how that sort of happened was because they called me and said, we have this song that we wrote with John Williams many years ago, and we've changed a verse, and no one's really ever recorded it. Would you do a demo for us? And I was like, hell yeah.
You're right.
And so I went over to Mike Melvoin's place. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you knew Mike, dear Mike. And Alan and Marilyn joined us and sat in the studio and told me how to read it and talked us through it. And I made this little demo of this song. And that led to basically 17 years of doing that.
Wow.
And,
how wonderful.
And so I've been able to do demos of songs of theirs with everybody from Lalo Schifrin and, of course, Michel Legrand, Dave Grusin, all these people. And I introduced them to Pat Metheny because Pat told me we were both at the Monterey Jazz Fest about maybe now it's been maybe 10 years, almost 10 years. And I asked him who had written lyrics to his songs that he liked. And he said, nobody really. And I said, yeah, lyrics are hard. I'm very close to Alan and Marilyn Bergman, and we talk about it. And he said, them. I want them to write lyrics for me. And I said, well, I can do that. I can fix that up. And so went back to LA, and I told them, I said, Pat Metheny says that nobody's written lyrics to his music that he likes, and he wants you to do it, and you should do it. And so it took about 3.5 years.
To find the song, or just to get them
connected?
No.
Just to kind of, Pat was super motivated and sent them a whole bunch of stuff, but the packet that he sent was stolen out of a car. I mean, there was just all sorts of practical issues that went on. But he was super motivated, and sure enough, they wrote their first song together, and I got to do the demo of it, and that was. I think in the end it was about 4 years ago that was completed, and then they've written several since. And by the time Pat was in the picture, I think the first song Marilyn was collaborating with Alan, but by the rest of them, it's just been Alan, because Marilyn stopped writing, and she passed in January. And so Alan's been writing on his own and writing fabulously well. But
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
He's writing all the time, and writing a bunch of stuff with Pat, and writing a musical, and writing something, for a TV show about Norman Lear's 100th birthday, and there's so many things. But
that's how we ended up collaborating. Alan and Marilyn wrote a song with Dave Grusin for a movie that I produced the music for, called "If You're Not in the Obit, Eat Breakfast."
Oh, that's great! Yeah,
with Norman and Carl Ron.
Terrific, right? That's very cool. Oh, why can I not hear you?
Singing his own song. It was just absolutely exquisite, And of course, with
he's
and
the
one of my
best.
heroes, Dave Grusin, who influenced me to be an artist, that could be just like yourself. We're not just you're not just a singer. I'm not just a guitar player. There are people who have come before us that have shown us that you can be more.
Right.
And each
Sure.
each informs the other, and that's so fantastic that you introduced Pat to Alan and Marilyn. I think that's great.
Yeah. So whatever comes of that, I get to have a little
I think
piece
so.
of that.
By the way, Deborah Barsha, who is in our audience, who was trying to get on to speak, just typed in a message just saying when she was writing the lyrics, she had your voice in mind the whole time. She could hear your voice.
Oh, that's so sweet.
So
Very cool. Very cool.
Deborah, are you back?
Yes,
There you go.
I am back, and you can put me on camera if you want to. I don't, whatever. But Tierney, I did want to say something to you. Bevan called me and said, "Would you be interested in writing lyrics to this?" Blah blah blah. Because we went to Eastman School of Music together, and he's kept in touch with me over these years. And he said, "Tierney Sutton, I'm going to give it to Tierney." I said, "Are you kidding me?" Yes. And he just said it's about a car. And it's just called Two Seats or Seats Two or whatever. Yes! And I was so excited when you liked it. I was like, oh my God, this is great. Anyway, it was great just seeing you even on here. And thank you for recording that song. I love it. I love what you did.
Oh, thanks for having me. It was really, really fun. It was really fun to do it. Bevan's an old friend of a gajillion years. We worked together in Boston in like 1990. I mean, we go back.
Yes, we do too. And another friend of mine who loves you. Yeah, my friend Mitchell Foreman loves you too.
Course.
So anyway.
I just saw him the other day with Alan Bergman. We went over there to record some stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you. And I'm going to go back in the audience and listen to the rest
Deborah.
of this. Okay.
Thanks, Deborah. But the thing is, having those opportunities, Alan would just call me up and say, hey, we've got this song, no one's ever recorded it. And they'd always be rangy and weird and beautiful and fabulous. And to have that guidance of them saying, okay, we want you to read that lyric like that. And we want you to read that lyric like that. And let's pick the best key. And that just, and so it made those experiences, like when Bevan asked me to do the song that he'd written with Deb, it's just really a fun thing to do,
Well, it's so great to hear from a writer who had the experience of writing for you. That's really nice. Deb, thanks for jumping in on that. So you're a cat lady?
I am a crazy cat lady. Buster,
Is Buster around?
Come over and be seen.
Yeah.
Wait, I'm gonna go get him. I'm gonna go
Okay.
get him. Hold on. Buster, you want to be on? Here, come here. Come here, Buster.
So Tierney and I were talking the other day about
This
just
is
personal
important.
things, and crazy
This is
cat lady was one of
important.
the things that came up.
This is important.
It really is. Yeah.
Buster is a fairly enormous part of my existence.
How long has he been in your
And
life?
my husband, he's been in my life for 14
Mm-hmm.
years. Although the vet says that if he was at a shelter, they would think that he was only 3 or 4 years old.
Okay.
and because he's in such great shape. And we basically make out all the time. It's kind of ridiculous. I'm just way too close to my
So you're talking
cat.
about Buster, not Sir's your husband. Okay.
Yeah. I'm talking about Buster, but Buster likes Serge, so it's okay. They get along.
They tolerate each other?
They do. They like each other.
Well, that's good.
They're okay.
That's good.
It is.
You know,
It is.
pets are. I had my dog Ollie for 12 years, and he was such an incredible part of my life and my friends' lives. You know, when they would come to the studio, and he would be there, and I even working with Melissa Manchester, and she asked me to bring Ollie to another studio that we were working, and just to have him around. You know, pets are everything.
I mean, I've realized that for me, you know, I didn't grow up with much faith in my life, and I think for me it's weird, but animals, I realize for me, are like evidence of the benevolence of God. I that's how I feel about them, because they're pure and they're not full of nonsense like people can so often be. And it's like, oh, God must be good because he made this. Like this is okay, because they're in the flow in a way that we frequently aren't.
Right.
And I like feeling like the creation is actually happening. And I think when you're close to an animal, you can feel the beauty of the creation, and then you're close to the creator a little bit.
I see that the same way. Yeah, and it's great to meet Buster.
And I love dogs. I love dogs just as much. You can't make out with dogs.
You kind of can.
Some people do.
It can be frowned upon.
You know.
but yeah, they are pretty. You know, dogs can be pretty enthusiastic about giving you a big kiss.
They're so sweet.
Yeah.
You know, but the interesting thing about Buster is that he is not at all motivated by food. He is only motivated by affection. He yells at me to cuddle him. He does not yell at me for food.
That's pretty fantastic. So he's a daily reminder of the importance of love.
Yes. Oh, yeah. He's like, be kind, be affectionate, and that's good.
Absolutely. I'm so glad I get to meet him, to have him be a part of the show.
He's great, and he's so soft. I wish there was a way to touch him, to let you guys touch him. But
so what's the part of it, you know, watching you just have him in your lap and have you explain the connection and the relationship? What's the crazy part? Because none of that seems crazy to me. You don't have 15 cats. You have Buster.
No, I don't have 15. I don't have 15 cats. I just have one. I think the crazy part is that the closeness that we have, and his demands on me. My son is like, Mom, you let that cat boss you around. You know, when I walk in the door, if it's after 7:00 at night, he yowls until I get into bed.
Oh.
So he can climb on me so that I can totally
So
cuddle
he rules
him.
the house. Yeah.
It's not okay for me to be. Oh, he's very demanding. But he's a cat, so he often is just off on his own doing his own thing. But once he decides that it's time for some love, it's just there's no real question about it.
Can you tell me, we're getting close to the hour being up. If you have an extra couple minutes, we could go long. Thanks. So we can get to my closing questions. But let's talk about your duet with Kurt Elling for a moment. Can you tell everybody about it's a new jazz mass, right?
It is actually a kind of a historic thing. I don't think this has ever been done before. There has been sacred music that's been written, but there's never been the Latin text of a Catholic mass put to jazz in this way. And so Chris Walden has written this gorgeous music.
And Kurt Elling,
Kurt and I sang.
You know, from his religious and literary background, you couldn't have chosen a better partner.
And I gotta say, like, I mean, I think his pronunciation of the first thing I did was get in touch with him and say, okay, so how do I pronounce this Latin? I know that you're gonna know. And despite the fact that both of my parents were fallen away Catholics, I had no idea. And so, do we do it? And so he was like, well, you have to choose between the traditional and Italian way. And I'm like, you tell me, sweetie, you just tell me what I'm supposed to do. And so he definitely pronounces probably better than I do, but I did the best I could. But it's such beautiful music, and again, it's really historical. It's never been done before, and so this weekend we'll be premiering it. We'll be doing a CD release, and we'll be performing it live at St. Dominic's Church in San Francisco. And and the record is going to be released next week, and it's just beautiful, and it's a wonderful thing. This wonderful trombone player, jazz fan, spiritual guy named Ted Hall wanted to do something special for his 50th wedding anniversary. And he decided to commission this beautiful jazz mass. And he was a fan of mine and requested me and knew Kurt a little bit. And so this came together. But of course, with COVID, we were supposed to do this a year ago. And it had to be canceled. And then we were going to do it in January. And then that got canceled, but it still was recorded in January. And then Kurt and I recorded our part, because it's with choir, organ solo, big band, and this beautiful new music. So it's really cool. It's really, really cool.
Well, and Chris is a magnificent orchestrator and arranger.
Oh, he's wonderful. And I've done so much work with him over the years and poached so many arrangements from him. I'll get called to do a big band thing and they'll say, oh, the theme is Gershwin. And then I just send a message to Chris saying, hey, what do you got in your big band book that's Gershwin? And he'll send me like 5 unbelievably great charts. And, and so the next day I get to do work with the big band at the San Jose Jazz Fest. And we'll be doing a bunch of Chris's big band
that's fun.
Which is going to be really fun.
Yeah, his big band.
With Tom Scott and great, all these players that are in the Jazz Mass and all the rest of it, great
Wayne
players.
Bergeron as well.
It's exciting.
Is Wayne going to be playing? Good.
Wayne, Wayne's definitely. Great. So it's going to be great.
Are they going to be video or recording, audio recording? Can I see that, hear it?
You'll be able to hear the album for sure at the end of the week. And, everything is videotaped now, so it wouldn't surprise me at all. It's like, you got to make up for every damn thing now.
Yeah. You're up on social media before you even, get back to the car. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So let me get to my 3 closing questions. And then, of course, anything else that you want to add to the conversation, you'll have closing words. My first question that I ask all of my guests is, since this show is called Making It, what does making it mean to you both personally and professionally?
Wow. I remember how I felt the first time I got a Grammy nomination, and what was predominant for me was, maybe they'll let me make another record.
Wow.
They'll let me do this again. That's it. So I think being able to do the thing is making it. Because you never know what's going to happen, and there's always a new person, and there's always somebody with more PR, and you just got to put one foot in front of the other. And so if you get joy out of doing the thing, and if you have wonderful people to do the thing with, that's making it. So,
thank you. Can you share 3 tips for success that have driven your career?
Be generous with the people working with you. You're not going to be on your deathbed worried that you paid your band an extra $100 for that gig in 1962. You're not going to be sitting there saying, why did I pay him that? Okay, so 1, be generous. 2, be detached. 3, what'll be 3? Take care of yourself.
And how do you do that? You exercise. I mean, I know you live
I
healthy.
definitely exercise. My treadmill is right behind me. Actually, I'm sitting in front of my treadmill. How's that for a beautiful location? Yeah, I think the interesting thing, it's like in the Baha'i faith, the way that we are commanded to deal with our spiritual life is very individual. And I think everybody has to figure out what works for them. So for example, Baha'is we have obligatory prayers that we say every day, but there's a choice of 3 with very different requirements and how much time they take and all the rest of it. We're told to meditate every day, but the manner of the meditation is up to the individual. And so all of these things, in the end, we have to figure out what it is that works for us. You know, it's like Baha'i-wise, we're supposed to be entering adulthood as a human race. We're supposed to be growing up. We're supposed to be coming out of our adolescence. And we're supposed to be able to say, okay, what really is good for me? What makes me feel good after I do it? And I think this should be number 3. Don't talk bad about anybody. Just don't. Because there's never any good from it. It just never is good. I'm not saying I never do it. I'm just saying that's my advice. It's my advice to others, and it's my advice to myself. Just
Great
avoid
tips. Oh, absolutely. My closing question, at this point of your life, with everything that you know to be true, what would you tell your younger self?
I would actually tell my younger self to take piano lessons and find somebody to up my musicianship game, because there's certain things that it's very difficult to learn when you're pushing 60. And when I see my friends and colleagues that learned this stuff when they were in their teens, 20s, and 30s, I realize, oh man, you know, I think you know, music is a language. At least a lot of it is. And it's not that you can't do it if you don't have all these skills, but it's really nice if you have these skills, just like learning to read. So that's what I would say.
That's great advice. But I also appreciate hearing that you having parts of your musicianship that you wish that there were, that you had started earlier on.
That I wish were better.
Which we all do, has not really limited your magnificence.
Magnificence. Well, that's a kind of big
word
there, Terry.
But it's one that I can use. It's one that I can use. And it's basically, because I'm not talking about myself. I'm not even talking about you. I'm talking about what you have had the courage and the curiosity and the passion and the willingness to pursue. You know, to pursue greatness and achieve moments of it along the way.
We hope
we do.
Here and
we
there. We hope here and there. I mean, it's, I don't know. But I also think that the whole and the reason that I'm uncomfortable about that sort of idea is that I do feel very much like the way the culture has sort of made the kind of star thing and, being on social media and getting people to like you and how many followers do you have. And I honestly, I think it's a little poisonous and I think it's a little insane.
I find it exhausting as well.
And so it really is about doing the thing. I was having a conversation with my friend Steve Tyrell the other day, and we were talking about 12-step stuff, which I'm very attached to. I have been involved in it from time to time, and I think that the spiritual principles are so healthy and so wonderful. And we were talking about the idea of principles above personalities, and I was having the question of whether social media and the world that we inhabit and that we're told we have to inhabit these days as artists is fundamentally at odds with that idea of principles above personalities. And so when I was talking about, the band and my philosophy about making music, that it's not me making the music, it's something else, and all of those ideas, to try to keep your feet beneath you and not and realize that if you're lucky enough to do the thing, that's the thing. And that whole sort of thing of like looking into the camera and saying, I know I am the American Idol. I know I am the great thing. Ay, caramba. What I can do is I can look in the mirror, and this is what I've been doing in the last couple of days because I have to do the Jazz Master tomorrow. And, have I worked? Yes. Have I worked hard on this? Yes. Have I done enough to do a good job? I believe I have. And so when I've done my due diligence, then if I screw up, well, God wants me to screw up. But you do your due diligence. And so that I can say at times, sometimes not, but that I can say. But to say, I'm the best, what is that? To say I'm magnificent or wonderful or any, it's like, no, I'm doing the thing. I've done my best. I even the practicing of it is a pleasure, and that's that.
I understand, and my intention in saying that was certainly not to make you uncomfortable, and I appreciate everything that you just said. But it's also, but from my own personal experience, also, I feel like I've had these moments, and I know that you've had these moments too, where you are standing in the experience and the presence and being some small part of magnificence. And that's, I think, what we were talking about originally, like being a vessel.
Yeah.
And I look around sometimes these moments, and I know you must know what I'm talking about, where you just, in a way, I even heard, like, Leland Sklar was just talking the other day that, being on stage with the artist that he's working with now, and he goes, once in a while he forgets to play. He's on stage playing, and he just forgets because he's so taken by how incredible everything sounds and who he's surrounded by and with and all that. And there's that experience that I think is, they don't happen often, or if they do, they don't happen all the time. But those are those moments where you were just in part of something bigger than all of us.
Yeah, no, and that's what it really is all the time, because if you're at least choosing material to do that you think is magnificent. Right. If I'm singing a great Bergman tune, at least I know that I'm trying to give honor to something that I really love. And this weekend I'll be playing with this just. It makes me tear up when I hear a great band and think I get to go up and sing a couple songs with those musicians, just knowing who they are and what it sounds like. And yes, when I'm on stage, I am part of the audience listening to the band, and trying. It's like being a doctor, like first do no harm. Like when I enter my toe into what they've created, I want to make sure that I don't take away from it,
I understand that. Well, I wish you a beautiful weekend. I think it's going to be a magnificent experience for everybody.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Terry. I really appreciate it.
It's absolutely been my pleasure, Tierney. Thanks for spending this time with me and sharing your story and perspective, which I really appreciate. I know that I wanted to make sure that we had time to talk about something that you don't typically get to really focus on in interviews. So I
really appreciate that, Terry. I really do.
Yeah, me too. It's just a beautiful conversation. I want to thank all of our listeners in our virtual audience today. We see you and we hear you and we appreciate you. And to everybody who listens to the archived episodes, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate you. And I just want to I want to tell everybody or remind everybody to stay safe and stay inspired and Once again, Tierney Sutton, thank you so much.
And I want to
Yes, go ahead.
I want to invite people to come to tierneysutton.com and give me your email if you're interested in what I do, so that I can be connected to you and pick you up on my way to the gig.
Absolutely.
Because it's pretty much like that with all of us. We have to be connected with our fans and with people that are interested in what we do.
And
so
we want to be.
That's the best way.
Absolutely.
You know?
And while you're at it, if you haven't already done this,
Twitter,
subscribe
Tierney
to Tierney's Spotify page. Subscribe to mine. That's how we were able to give you our music for free, is a way that you can give back to us and to support artists to continue creating recorded music. So follow Tierney everywhere, follow me, and thanks for reminding everybody of that. And you won't regret it. There's some fantastic music and stories on your website, and that's a great place to start. And then you can go to the Instagram and all the other places where you can find Tierney.
Twitter and Instagram.
Just do it all. Do it all. Take you 5 minutes and you won't regret it. I promise you that. Thanks, Jerry.
And there's lots of Buster stuff on there, and that's
most importantly, Crazy Cat Lady.
Right. That's right. Bye, Terry.
Bye, Tierney. Thank you, and thank you, everybody. We appreciate you.
Tune in again next week for another great episode of Making It with Terry Woolman.